For everybody, it's a little bit different, but I would say definitely, even just reading the book Emotional Intelligence would probably be a good place to start. So that's a great, the EQ part of it there. Um, if you don't know who you are, and a lot of people don't, especially if they're starting businesses in their 20s, they're just figuring it out. Like talk to people around you. How do they see you? Ask people what they see as your biggest weaknesses. And nobody likes to hear that, but it is going to save you so much down the road.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Today we have another great guest, Jennifer Christensen. And Jennifer started her journey growing up in Alaska, went to university, and then came back to Alaska and worked in sales for about 10 years. Started a business with her husband, a bed and breakfast, I believe, after the birth of their first child. The business did well and took off for a while. And then 9/11 came along and ended up forcing to close the doors on that business. And so went back into sales for a while. And also at that time, the internet was growing quite a bit. So started a new business with a business partner that is now focused on the health and wellness niche and doing some work there. So with that much as a introduction, welcome on the podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
Excited to have you here and to hear your journey. So I just gave a quick overview to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack it just a little bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started growing up in Alaska.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents came here when I was 9 years old from Michigan, both teachers, and they were looking for adventure, looking for higher salaries at the time. Alaska definitely paid higher, and they were planning on only being here for a few years. But like many people that come here, once you're here, you don't want to leave. So we ended up staying, and I really consider myself lifelong Alaska. I've been here 40 years, so very long time. And I fell in love with it definitely, even from close to the beginning. It was a huge change from the Midwest, but the people are very similar, very friendly, very accessible. I had a great experience through high school here. And then when I left for a while for college, and didn't even seem like an option, I definitely wanted to come back.
No, makes sense. So just to rewind just a little bit, going off to college, where did you go? What did you study? Kind of what was that or aspect of the journey?
Yeah, University of Puget Sound. And it was a good experience. I definitely, like most people, I think you go to college and you think you're going to do one thing. I actually found myself really torn between business, which I was drawn to, and the creative field, like art and design. And it was almost like the two sides of my brain just completely were like, which direction am I going? From a child, I wanted to be an artist, but I was always drawn to entrepreneurial endeavors. And so our first business, we actually started on our honeymoon. We actually came up with the idea of our honeymoon to start a bed and breakfast. And it really did incorporate, my love for design. And that part was so much fun. I really enjoy like creating great, great, beautiful experiences for people. And then the internet was just starting then. So this is in the, early 90s. And
Hmm.
so we were one of the first people to really, our bed and breakfast just took off. We were like number one within 2 years, and we're doing really, really well. That actually turned into a huge tourism company, which I had all the way through 9/11. So it actually grew and grew well past just that initial business. And then I had a huge failure with when that ended. And that definitely brought me to my knees, literally, and was like, okay, there's more to life than just achieving these things. And it brought me to a place of faith and changing who I was. I didn't expect to go into business again, but
So just one
And
quick
really love
question,
it.
not to rub too much salt in the wound,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
just to dive in a bit
No, it's
deeper.
okay.
So you had the business, bed and breakfast, had the idea with the honeymoon, and and kind of built that out. Now, kind of how long were you doing it? And you touched on it, but kind of what led to I'll say the downfall or whatever you
The
want to call
failure.
it of
Yeah, no,
of that business.
no, I'm happy to share that. I think it's really important. We don't talk about failure enough, and just it's important to talk about. So bed and breakfast was very successful. We did that for 5 years. And then as we started having kids, I continued to work from home. As that was going really, really well, we were getting all these calls for people that wanted to come to Alaska. And so the natural outpouring was to develop a whole company around that. And that actually became a multi-million-dollar company that I developed in my early 20s. What really led to the failure that is really sad, and I tell people this all the time in business, that what really led to the failure was my own lack of like moral compass and really knowing how to make decisions out of putting what doing right first above the outcome. I was so focused on I have to be successful that when things fell apart in 9/11, after 9/11, and we were owed a bunch of money in the business, I should say we, it was my business. We were owed a bunch of money. I should have taken steps to cut back, close doors, do some other things, and I didn't. I just really just kept going out of pride and um, just lack of that like personal maturity and growth of doing the right thing first. So I tell people all the time that your business cannot outgrow or outscale who you are as a person, like as far as your personal development, your moral code, what you believe is right. All of those things eventually will affect your business on one level or another, unless you hire somebody to run it for you.
No,
So
that
that's
makes
that's the
sense.
truth. I mean, that's not fun to talk about, but that is absolutely, that's why I didn't think I would go back into business again, because I'm like, well, I don't want to ever go through that again.
So
Ended up failing.
now
Yeah,
no, yeah. So you're coming out of that, and failure one, yeah, it's never fun to talk about or experience for that
right.
matter. And yet it is one where, it is certainly an aspect or it happens as you pursue a business and it is some of those things you just get it to deal with as being a business owner. So you're coming out of that, and I believe you went into sales, or kind of how did you decide kind of where you were going to go, or picking up the pieces, so to speak, or re-engaging, or kind of explore the next phase of the journey? Kind of how did you decide what that next phase would be?
Yeah, I think that, so went to therapy, so started working on myself and really looking at, okay, what am I really good at? And this is where I really started developing what I would call radical honesty with myself, a high level of self-awareness, knowing what I was good at, where my skills and talents were, and what I wasn't good at. And when I really came down to it, I was like, okay, I just grew a multi-million-dollar company, without very much knowledge about business, sheerly on my skills for sales and marketing. And so when I looked at coming back into the job world, it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And it was, okay, let's focus on what I do well. Let's not focus on the money side, the operations side, those detail pieces, some of those pieces that I'm not great at. And I'm just going to build a career off of that. Took some more classes, even at college, some MBA courses, really learning who I was, but I still didn't expect to go back into business. I probably wouldn't have if people didn't come to me and ask me to do it.
No, that makes perfect sense. So now kind of get into that aspect, get into sales, kind of go down that route. Now,
Yeah.
what or kind of how long were you in there, and kind of what drove you back into to doing your own business?
Yeah, so I did sales, corporate sales for almost 10 years, worked up the ladder of a local, really popular gym like franchise type company. Worked all the way up to corporate sales manager. And this is like 15 years ago. So I did that for 10 years, and my kids were getting older. They were pretty, they were like teenagers at this point. And a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, there is this new startup and they're looking for somebody who's really good at sales and really good at marketing. And they need somebody to basically launch and build and develop this entire online news site. And it was one of the first in the nation that was developed under the whole new digital marketing, social media world. So there wasn't even any courses on it or anything like that, but it was one of the first in the nation. And I was like, that sounds like so much fun. I'm going to go do something, it was kind of like the best of both worlds because I was basically able to grow a new company, but I had the salary and the backing, of somebody else that was doing it. And so I did that for a couple of years and then left there after a couple of years to help take care of my grandmother. And I had multiple people come to me and say, hey, like you're the only person we know that really understands digital marketing, really understands this world, will you help us? And so it was really through the birth of just having that expertise and knowledge base in our community that's what led me back into business again.
So now, so maybe a question or two. So as you get back into business, you decide to go down that route. Was there anything, I'll say lessons learned or things that you're saying, hey, kind of came off the failure or the closure of the previous business. So you're saying, hey, I'm gonna do this differently, or I'm gonna incorporate this into what I'm doing to this business to kind of set it up for I'll say a better likelihood of success, or kind of having that set up as to learn from the failure, so to speak, or was it a different enough business, different enough industry that wasn't as applicable, or kind of anything that came or comes to mind on that aspect?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was 100%, again, radical honesty with myself. This is who I am. This is what I'm good at. So I was business, and I do believe I don't care what industry you're in. As I said before, it is your personal moral compass. It is who you are. It is your ability to know what you're good at and not good at that's going to determine your success moving forward. So I was only planning on being a solo entrepreneur. I felt confident enough in who I was that I could manage myself, that I could basically, not have employees, but, take care of myself, make a good income, provide good results for clients. And I planned on staying very small. So pretty quickly, though, about 6 to 8 months in, I realized that, I needed a graphic designer. I needed a web person. I needed all these people. So I started networking and I met this woman, Adrienne, who's now my business partner, has been for the last 13 years. And we completely clicked. We connected on every level, from values to what our visions were to help small businesses. And she had a much bigger vision for business. But amazingly, she had all the skills and the desire to do the part of the company that I did not. So we pretty quickly merged within about 3 months. She had her own graphic and web business. I had the marketing side. We merged companies. We started growing the company in Alaska. And the thing that made it work from the very beginning, and has still to this day made it very successful, is that we were very clear about, this is my side, this is your side. Now, over the 13 years, I have gotten way better at the business side. I have gotten way more confident. I have learned how to do basically cross-train, learn how to do all those things well. But in the beginning, we were very like, this is yours, this is mine. Let's run. Let's do this well.
So
So
now,
yeah, it's
and you
amazing
may
how
have
that.
mentioned, but how long ago was that, or kind of when did you kind of with the co-founder, the other main person in the business, how long ago did you get that started?
So it was 13 years ago last month, and we just celebrated our 13th year, and we now have 35 employees. We started out, like I said, a small company in Anchorage, Alaska. We grew to what I would consider kind of the level of where we could in the Alaska market. And then we expanded nationally 6 years ago. And that's when our growth really took off. We've been on the Inc. 5000 list for the last 3 years, or actually 2 years, but hopefully this year again as well. So we've grown tremendously, especially over the last 4 years since we expanded nationally, and we really niched down our market. But it was the foundation in the local market first, and really getting our identity and who we are done well. Then we could expand on a national basis. And yeah, I don't see that stopping for a long time. Like we're in this to win it for a long time, and believe in what we're doing, really love helping clients, especially in this particular sector. And we're now moving pretty heavily into AI as well.
No, that's awesome. Now, Maybe just one follow-up to just to with it. So been in business for 13 years. You said, grown and brought on additional team members and otherwise expanded and grew the business. Now, kind of was that out of the chute, it was just a rocket ship to the top and had more clients and work than you knew what to do with and money raining down from the sky? Or was it more of a back and forth or iterative, or an iterative, building of the business, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, or kind of how did that evolution play out over that 13 years as you're figuring out the business?
Wow, so many. I mean, we made a lot of mistakes, which I think a lot of people do. But basically, the evolution of how we really learned was we took those same principles of knowing who we are, having a clear vision, foundation of, I believe, any business. We took that concept of this is who we're going to serve and serve well. And then honestly, every time we have veered from that, and we made some pretty big mistakes where in the beginning we knew we were supposed to be a digital first agency. That was like what we were supposed to be doing to disrupt the market and to really help people in this way. And then many clients asked us to become a full service because they were already
Mm.
working with us. Can't you do this, and this for us, right? Kind of like your business, like you guys have that great specialty, right? I'm sure people ask you, hey, could you just do this for me over here? So we fell for that, after 2 or 3 years, and we're like, oh, this would just be more business. And so then we hired other people that weren't part of our core mission, and we almost immediately started losing money. So that's like one of our first really big lessons is that, it's better to be excellent and an expert at, one or two things than to try to do, you cannot serve everybody. You cannot be the person for everybody. So that was a tough one. Some of the other things we've had happen were just things beyond our control. Our first year in business, we had everything stolen out of our office. Our salesperson unfortunately relapsed. You learn all these things that are going to happen outside of your control as a business owner that very few people talk about. Like you don't see this in the scaling up books, right? But it is truly perseverance and how you. We have a joke that just says we just outlasted everybody. And so perseverance is very underrated in entrepreneurship. The other lesson is to really, really know your market. And we tell clients this all the time. It kind of floors me when I look back on it that we didn't do this better. We do it now, but there's nothing wrong. In fact, you absolutely should go and interview potential clients or people that are in your target market and really talk to them before you even step off into doing what you're going to do. It used to be called focus groups. There's a lot of different ways to do that now, but so many people have a dream or an idea in entrepreneurship, and then they really haven't tested if that's actually what people in the market want. And
Mm.
you can totally spend a lot of money and go down the wrong road. We again joke about that as well. Like we would love to do big, beautiful brands, for all of our small clients, but that is not generally what they value. What they value is us being able to turn around a great landing page, get new clients in the door, handle their tech problems, make everything happen very quickly. And then, then we can have the creative discussion on maybe some of the other things, but they need us to solve problems for them. And so if we were only focused on like what we would like to do, that would be fun for us to do in those pieces, then, we're not going to have a successful scaling business.
No, and I like it. And you touched on, I think it's one of those balances in the sense that, yeah, you have clients who will ask you to do something. You said, sure, I could probably do that or figure that out or bring people on. And sometimes that's the right move, but just as likely is that, it can sometimes also move you away from what would be the core competencies or what you either enjoy doing or are best at or can add the most value. And so, sometimes it's that short term versus long term and kind of how you want to balance those, potential business avenues versus what may be a drag on the business long term. So definitely makes sense. And you kind of really transitioned into the two questions as we reach the present day of the journey that I always like to jump to. And so you already touched on a couple, but I'll ask a couple of questions anyway. But the
Sure.
first question I always hit on, which you kind of touched on, would be, within or along the journey, what was the biggest mistake you made, and what'd you learn from it?
So are we talking the whole journey, like the whole thing, or like this business?
Oh, the whole any or all
This
of the
business?
above.
Yeah.
Usually, the whole journey is typically what we look at, so it doesn't have to be narrowed to this business, but kind of along the journey, what was the biggest or one of the biggest mistakes that you learned from?
I think the biggest mistake overall, and there has been variations of this mistake. Obviously, the huge mistake was, the first business failure. So I have a term that I like to use, which is called humble confidence. And I believe humble confidence from a perspective of an entrepreneur is like the most important thing as far as like who you are as a person, how you operate. So pride definitely got me the first time, right? And not having that willingness to ask for help where I needed to be humble and acknowledge the pieces that I didn't know, get the right people in the right places. I was too worried about what it looked like or that I had to achieve some level of success to, prove something to other people. So I lacked the humility in that to really do what needed to be done and to serve the business and the people in it well. But confidence, and that can happen at so many different levels. Like I see it with businesses all the time. There's a pride piece which is very different than confidence. So many mistakes that we've made over the years, even like so different phases of growth, going from a small Alaska company to a national company, being willing to call people, ask for their advice, not being afraid to ask the questions, how you're going to look. So that humility piece, number one, but the confidence piece on the other side, and this is maybe more of a little bit of a woman entrepreneur thing that I've seen definitely in myself and other women entrepreneurs. Like when you know something and you're good at it, own it, be confident in it. Like there is like you have to, you're in business and people aren't going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. So when you really do have that expertise, and I know I'm going a little bit softer on the lessons here because I could give very specific examples, but like if you have those two pieces, then it helps you make good decisions all the way through the business. So that's my big thing.
No. No, that's a good, and you kind of hit on now that you stole my thunder, so to speak, on the second question. But no, that was a great or some great answers, and I'll ask the second question, give you another opportunity maybe to share a bit more knowledge. But the second question to follow that up is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
For everybody, it's a little bit different, but I would say definitely, even just reading the book Emotional Intelligence would probably be a good place to start. So that's a great, the EQ part of it there. If you don't know who you are, and a lot of people don't, especially if they're starting businesses in their 20s, they're just figuring it out. Like talk to people around you. How do they see you? Ask people what they see as your biggest weaknesses. And nobody likes to hear that, but it is going to save you so much down the road. I would suggest also, I know you said one thing, but it all kind of goes together, but I would suggest taking the strengths test. So, there's so many stats around that, but the people that focus on their top 5 strengths, from the Gallup survey, if you guys are familiar with that, but the top 5 strengths, they have the most successful careers. Like there is stats that show they tend to make $1 million or more over the course of their career than people that don't. So once you know what your strengths are and how you operate, one, it allows you to kind of match people or meet people where they're at and not judge them so much about why or how they're different, but to understand you need people that complement your strengths and you need to know what yours are so you can also have somebody that complements your weaknesses. So again, that's my biggest thing. 90% or maybe even 99% now, and you might see this more from like the type of work you do of new businesses, it's not about the idea anymore. Doesn't mean there's not great ideas, but there are so many ideas. There are so many different, ideas that are coming out now, and many of them are similar. So what's the difference going to be? It's going to be the execution. And the execution is going to be based on who you are and how you handle things and I believe that that humble confidence piece. So that would be my advice. Go to therapy, talk to your friends, take some tests, start working on your personal development.
No, those are all, I think, great rules of thumb and really go hand in hand and are good takeaways. So, well, now as we kind of reached the present day, gone through the questions and heard about your journey, as we wrap up, if people do want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Absolutely. So Jennifer Christensen on LinkedIn. I do respond to all LinkedIn messages. I have a free 15-minute consult if you even just want to chat. I love to chat with and even mentor startup business entrepreneurs. It's one of my joys these days. And then Beacon Media and Marketing if you do need digital marketing services, if you're in that health and wellness space. So everything from women's health, men's health, mental health. That is really our core competency. We're definitely good at it. Yeah, either one would be great.
Awesome.
The chat.
Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of your listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So, let's go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Jennifer, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.